let's go ahead and read The Wife of Bath's Tale together. Um, Before we get into it, you should have seen in the background information the Canterbury Tales is a set of stories being told by people who are on a journey. They're on a pilgrimage. The wife of Bath is the person telling this story. She is not a character in the story. She is simply the narrator. I'm going to reiterate it when we get to the annotation pieces, but just be keeping in mind that as the narrator, the person who's telling the story, she's using very particular words and language to get across the point that she's trying to make, and that's what we would consider the tone of the text. So it starts off, when good King Arthur ruled in ancient days, a king that every Briton loves to praise. This was a land brimful of fairy folk, the elf queen and her courtiers joined and broke their elfin dance on many a green mead, or so was the opinion once I read. Hundreds of years ago, in days of yore, but no one now sees fairies any more. For now the saintly charity and prayer of holy friars seem to have purged the air. They search the countryside through field and stream, as thick as motes that speckle a sunbeam, blessing the halls, the chambers, kitchens, bowers, cities and boroughs, castles, courts, and towers, thorps, barns, and stables, outhouses, and dairies, and that's the reason why there are no fairies. So let's pause there. What she's essentially saying is this happened a long time ago during the time of King Arthur. There were fairies everywhere. Magic kind of filled their world. And now in the present time of her telling it, there aren't fairies or magic anymore because God and religion and holy friars, so, like priests, have taken over everywhere. They've blessed in the name of God chambers, kitchens, cities, castles, barns, stables, pretty much anywhere and everywhere. These friars have been to bless things in the name of God. All right, so we're going to pick back up at line 45. Wherever there was wont to walk an elf, today there walks the holy friar himself. As evening falls or when the daylight springs, saying his matins and his holy things, walking his limit round from town to town. Women can now go safely up and down. By every bush or under every tree, there is no other incubus but he. So there is really no one else to hurt you, and he will do no more than take your virtue. So she's saying that now that the friar's around, there are no, bad guys. Minions of the devil or demons, as religious people would consider these fairies, out and about to hurt you. And so she's going back and she's going to tell about how her story is going to go. But it happened back in King Arthur's day. So she is doing a flashback of sorts. Now it so happened I began to say, long, long ago in good King Arthur's day, there was a knight who was a lusty liver. One day as he came riding from the river, he saw a maiden walking all forlorn, ahead of him, alone as she was born. And of that maiden, spite of all she said, by very force he took her maiden head. So there's a knight out walking around. He saw a lady leaving the river. She was all by herself, and despite her protests, he forced himself upon her and took her virginity. He raped her. This act of violence made such a stir, so much petitioning to the king for her, that he condemned the knight to lose his head. By course of law, he was as good as dead. It seems that then the statutes took that view, but that the queen, and other ladies too, implored the king to exercise his grace. So ceaselessly he gave the queen the case, and granted her his life, and she could choose whether to show him mercy or refuse. So people were so upset about this terrible thing that happened that they petitioned to the king to do something about the knight. The king determined that the knight was to be executed, but the queen and her ladies petitioned the king himself to use some grace and maybe not kill him right away. So the king said, all right, I will let you be in charge of whether this man lives or dies. So you would pause right here, and in lines 66 to 72, highlight the words or phrases indicating behavior that would not be consistent with the behavior of a traditional medieval king. So thinking back to medieval times, what would a traditional king, think of him as the male, the head of the household, how would he normally behave? And what things happened in here that would be different from that? And then you're going to answer this question. What does this contradiction or this difference demonstrate about the wife of Bath's views on the relationship between men and women? So the wife of Bath, the woman who's telling the story, by including this information, what does that tell us about her views on the relationship between men and women? Okay, so let's move on. The queen returned him thanks with all her might, and then she sent a summons to the knight at her convenience, and expressed her will. You stand, for such is the position still, in no way certain of your life, said she. Yet you shall live if you can answer me. What is the thing that women most desire? Beware the axe, and say as I require. If you can't answer on the moment, though, I will concede you this. You are to go a 12-month and a day to seek and learn. Sufficient answer, then you shall return. I shall take gages from you to extort surrender of your body to the court. Sad was the knight, and sorrowfully sighed, but there all other choices were denied, and in the end he chose to go away, and to return after a year and day, armed with such answer as there might be sent to him by God. He took his leave and went. So she's saying, you're alive now, but it's not a guarantee you're going to stay that way. I will let you live if you can tell me what is the thing that women most desire. If you can't tell me right now, that's fine. I will give you 12 months or 1 year and 1 day to find the answer and return to me. Obviously, the knight has no idea what it is that women want, can't answer the question in the moment, and is going to go ahead and take the year that she's giving him and go and find whatever answer God will send him, hoping that it will be enough to spare his life. He knocked at every house, searched every place. Yes, anywhere that offered hope of grace. What could it be that women wanted most? But all the same, he never touched a coast, country or town in which there seemed to be any two people willing to agree. So he went door to door, essentially coast to coast, could not find two people who agreed on what it was that women wanted. Some said that women wanted wealth and treasure. Honor, said some jollity and pleasure. Some gorgeous clothes, and others fun in bed. To be oft widowed and remarried, said others again. And some that what most mattered was that we should be cosseted and flattered. That's very near the truth, it seems to me. A man can win us best with flattery. To dance attendance on us, make a fuss, ensnare us all, the best and worst of us. Some say the things we most desire are these: freedom to do exactly as we please, with no one to reprove our faults and lies, rather to have one call us good and wise. Truly, there's not a woman in 10 score who has a fault and someone rubs the sore, but she will kick if what he says is true. You try it out and you will find so too. However vicious we may be within, we like to be thought wise and void of sin. Others assert we women find it sweet when we are thought dependable, discreet, and secret, firm of purpose and controlled, never betraying things that we are told. But that's not worth the handle of a rake. Women conceal a thing? For heaven's sake. So we're going to pause right there and look at this annotation. So looking at lines 99 through 108, basically from here to here, highlight the words or phrases that convey the wife of Bath's tone. So in this section, she's telling us what some of these women have told the knight, what they are telling him they want. Some are saying honor, some are saying fun, some are saying gorgeous clothing, some are saying let me get married and then widowed, meaning my husband dies, and then I get married again. And that way I'm not married to the same person forever and ever. Some say that it's flattery to, make a fuss over us. Okay? So what words in here convey the tone? Remembering that tone is a feelings word. So what is her feeling? And that's what it's asking here for your inference. What is her attitude toward the knight's quest for an answer? Again, not the queen's attitude. She's the one who sent him on the quest. We want to know the wife of Bath's attitude. So based on the words that she chose, from here to here, how does she feel about his quest? What is that feelings word that we would be looking for? We can't keep secrets. As for Midas, well, read Ovid for his story. He will tell. This night that I am telling you about, perceived at last he never would find out what it could be that women loved the best. Faint was the soul within his sorrowful breast. As home he went, he dared no longer stay. His year was up, and now it was the day. So he searched as far and wide as he could and realized that he would never find out what women want best because he could never get a straight answer. Everybody gave him something different. And his time is up, so now he's headed back to the queen. As he rode home in a dejected mood, suddenly, at the margin of a wood, he saw a dance upon the leafy floor, and 24 ladies, nay, and more. Eagerly he approached in hope to learn some words of wisdom ere he should return. But lo, before he came to where they were, dancers and dance all vanished into air. There wasn't a living creature to be seen, save one old woman crouched upon the green. A fouler looking creature, I suppose, could scarcely be imagined. She arose and said, "Sir Knight, there's no way on from here. Tell me what you are looking for, my dear, for peradventure that were best for you. We old women know a thing or two." So he's on his way. He sees some ladies dancing in the forest, and he was going to go check with them. I mean, he's already on his way back. He might as well see if they've got an answer. Everybody disappeared, and all that was left was like the ugliest old woman you have ever seen, right? A fouler looking creature, I suppose, could scarcely be imagined. Like, you couldn't even imagine an uglier old woman. And she says, "Hey, what you looking for? I mean, old people know stuff, so maybe I can help." He says, "Dear mother," said the knight, "alack the day! I am as good as dead if I can't say what thing it is that women most desire. If you could tell me, I would pay your hire." "Give me your hand," she said, "and swear to do whatever I shall next require of you, if so to do should lie within your might, and you shall know the answer before night." "Upon my honor," he answered, "I agree." So he tells her what he's looking for, and she said, "Okay, give me your hand. And you tell me that you will swear to do whatever I ask you to do. If you can swear to that, I will give you the answer in time for you to not be dead." "Then," said the crone, "I dare to guarantee your life is safe. I shall make good my claim. Upon my life, the queen will say the same. Show me the very proudest of them all, in costly coverchief or jeweled caul, that dare say no to what I have to teach. Let us go forward without further speech." And then she crooned her gospel in his ear, and told him to be glad and not to fear. So she's saying, since you agreed to do whatever I ask you to do, I'm going to make good on my promise. I'm going to tell you exactly the answer that the queen is looking for, and no woman out there would deny the answer I'm going to give you. But let's go ahead and head on to the court. You don't want to be late. They came to court this night in full array, stood forth and said, "O queen, I've kept my day, and kept my word, and have my answer ready." There sat the noble matrons and the heady young girls and widows too, that have the grace of wisdom, all assembled in that place. And there the queen herself was throned to hear and judge his answer. Then the night drew near, and silence was commanded through the hall. The queen gave order he should tell them all what thing it was that women wanted most. He stood not silent like a beast or post, but gave his answer with the ringing word of a man's voice, and the assembly heard. So all of this is just a fancy way of saying that the women of the court were all gathered round to see if he actually had the answer and if he was going to be able to keep his life, or if the queen was going to have him executed. And so here's his answer. "My liege and lady in general," said he, "a woman wants the same self-sovereignty over her husband as over her lover, and master him, he must not be above her. This is your greatest wish, whether you kill or spare me, please yourself. I wait your will. So he's saying what women want most in the whole wide world is to have the same kind of authority and autonomy that men have. Men must not be above women. And then he says, this is my answer. So whether you're going to let me live or die, I'm waiting to find out. In all the court, not one that shook her head or contradicted what the knight had said. Maid, wife, and widow cried, he saved his life. And on the word up started the old wife, the one the knight saw sitting on the green, and cried, your mercy, sovereign lady queen, before the court disperses, do me right. 'Twas I who taught this answer to the knight, for which he swore and pledged his honor to it, that the first thing I asked of him he'd do it, so far as it should lie within his might. Before this court I ask you then, Sir Knight, to keep your word and take me for your wife, for well you know that I have saved your life. Whoa. Whoa. So before anybody can leave, I mean, they've all decided like, hey, he got the right answer. That's crazy. The old woman stands up and says, okay, here's the deal. I told him the answer, but the condition was that he do whatever I ask. And what I'm asking now is that you marry me. Take me for your wife. So, I wonder what he's going to do. If this be false, deny it on your sword. Alas, he said, old lady, by the Lord, I know indeed that such was my behest, but for God's love, think of a new request. I don't think he's taking it very well. Take all my goods, but leave my body free. A curse on us, she said, if I agree. I may be foul, I may be poor and old, yet will not choose to be for all the gold that's bedded in the earth or lies above, less than your wife, nay, than your very love. So she's saying, no, I'm not taking your money. That's not what I want. What I want is to be the love of your life. My love, said he, by heaven, my damnation, alas, that any of my race and station should ever make so foul a misalliance. Yet in the end his pleading and defiance all went for nothing. He was forced to wed. He takes his ancient wife and goes to bed. Okay, so because it was a promise that he made and it was the only way to keep himself alive, his protest did nothing. He still had to marry her. He was forced to wed. Now peradventure some may well suspect a lack of care in me, since I neglect to tell of the rejoicing and display made at the feast upon their wedding day. I have but a short answer to let fall. I say there was no joy or feast at all, nothing but heaviness of heart and sorrow. He married her in private, and on the morrow, and all day long stayed hidden like an owl. It was such torture that his wife looked foul. Let's pause here and look at the annotation. Okay. Highlight the words and phrases in lines 247, so from here to 256, right here, that convey the wife of Bath's tone. Again, the one telling the story. What feelings word are we getting here, and what part of this passage is giving that to us, right? in this particular stanza right here, I say there was no joy or feast at all, a lack of care in me since I neglect. She's essentially saying, you're going to think that I'm just leaving some stuff out because I didn't tell about how awesome the wedding day is. That's not what happened. What happened is that there actually was no joy, no feasting. It was not an awesome wedding day. Okay? Once you have the tone, how does her tone influence readers' views of their wedding night? So, now that you know what her feeling is about this marriage, this wedding, how does it influence your view of it? How does the word she chooses to describe it influence how you see it? Great was the anguish churning in his head when he and she were piloted to bed. He wallowed back and forth in desperate style. His ancient wife lay smiling all the while. At last she said, "Bless us! Is this, my dear, how knights and wives get on together here? Are these the laws of good King Arthur's house? Are knights of his all so contemptuous?" So, as per the custom, they went back to their own bed chambers for their wedding night ritual, the intimate part of being married. And he was not having it. He was basically being a big crybaby. And she said, "Really? Is this how it's supposed to be? Is this how all of King Arthur's knights act? I don't know that that's a great idea. I am your own beloved and your wife, and I am she indeed that saved your life. And certainly I never did you wrong. Then why this first of nights so sad a song? You're carrying on as if you were half-witted. Say, for God's love, what sin have I committed? I'll put things right if you will tell me how." So she's saying, dude, like, I saved your life. I've never treated you badly. Why are you acting this way towards me? Just tell me how to fix it. "Put right," he cried, "that never can be now. Nothing can ever be put right again. You're old and so abominably plain. So poor to start with, so low bred to follow. It's little wonder if I twist and wallow. God, that my heart would burst within my breast." "Is that," said she, "the cause of your unrest?" So he's saying, how do you not understand what's happening here? You can't fix it. You're old, you're plain, you're poor, you're low bred. That's why I am throwing this temper tantrum. And she's like, "Really? That's why you're being this way?" "Yes, certainly," he said, "and can you wonder? I could set right what you suppose a blunder. That's if I cared to, in a day or two, if I were shown more courtesy by you. Just now," she said, "you spoke of gentle birth, such as descends from ancient wealth and worth. If that's the claim you make for gentlemen, such arrogance is hardly worth a hen." So she's saying, what you're saying is wrong with me, I could fix if I wanted to, but you're not being very nice, so I probably won't. And when you're talking about a gentle birth, you're really just talking about being rich, and that's not worth anything. "Whoever loves to work for virtuous ends, public and private, and who most intends to do what deeds of gentleness he can, our fathers cannot make us a bequest of all those virtues that became them best, and earned for them the name of gentlemen, but bade us follow them as best we can." So she's saying being a gentleman isn't about being rich. It's about being gentle. It's about doing good deeds for others, working for virtuous results. And those who were gentlemen that came before us told us that that's what we have to do. Thus, the wise poet of the Florentines, Dante by name, has written in these lines, "For such is the opinion Dante launches, seldom arises by these slender branches. Prowess of men, for it is God no less, will us to claim of him our gentleness. For of our parents nothing can we claim, save temporal things, and these may hurt and maim." So she's saying, God has said that we get our gentleness from him. The only thing we get from our parents is earthly, worldly things, and those hurt people. But everyone knows this as well as I, for if gentility were implanted by the natural course of lineage down the line, public or private, could it cease to shine in doing the fair work of gentle deed? No vice or villainy could then bear seed. So she's saying, if you actually inherited being a gentleman through your family line, then nobody would have any vice or villainy. They wouldn't be bad people. Take fire and carry it to the darkest house between this kingdom and the Caucasus, and shut the doors on it and leave it there. It will burn on, and it will burn as fair, as if 10,000 men were there to see. For fire will keep its nature and degree, I can assure you, sir, until it dies. But gentleness, as you will recognize, is not annexed in nature to possessions. Men fail in living up to their professions, but fire never ceases to be fire. God knows you'll often find, if you inquire, some lording full of villainy and shame, if you would be esteemed for the mere name of having been by birth a gentleman, and stemming from some virtuous noble clan. So she's saying the nature of fire is to be fire forever. But the nature of man is toward villainy and shame. And being born a gentleman does not make you a gentleman. And do not live yourself by gentle deed, or take your father's noble code and creed. You are no gentleman, though duke or earl. Vice and bad manners are what make a churl. So again, I don't care how you're born, you're not a gentleman unless you act like it. Gentility is only the renown for bounty that your fathers handed down, quite foreign to your person, not your own. Gentility must come from God alone. That we are gentle comes to us by grace, and by no means is it bequeathed with place. Reflect how noble, says Valerius, was Tullius, surnamed Hostilius, who rose from poverty to nobleness, and read Boethius, Seneca no less. Thus they express themselves and are agreed. Gentle is he that does a gentle deed. And therefore, my dear husband, I conclude that even if my ancestors were rude, yet God on high, and so I hope he will, can grant me grace to live in virtue still. A gentlewoman only when beginning to live in virtue and to shrink from sinning. So she's saying, I don't care how I was born. I still have the ability to be a gentlewoman because I live in virtue and I stay away from sin. As for my poverty, which you reprove, Almighty God himself in whom we move, believe and have our being, chose a life of poverty, and every man or wife, nay, every child can see our heavenly King would never stoop to choose a shameful thing. So in the story of Christianity, Christ, God's Son, was born of Mary and came to live as man on earth, and was the son of a carpenter on earth. He lived a very low and humble life. And so she's saying, being poor, not a bad thing. If it was, God wouldn't have done it. No shame in poverty if the heart is gay, as Seneca and all the learned say. He who accepts his poverty unhurt, I'd say is rich, although he lacked a shirt. But truly poor are they who whine and fret, and covet what they cannot hope to get. And he that, having nothing, covets not, is rich, though you may think he is a sot. So she's saying the rich people in life are the ones who can find joy in life, who don't wish for things. The poor are the ones who spend their time in coveting, or the jealousy or envy of wanting what other people have. True poverty can find a song to sing. Juvenal says a pleasant little thing. The poor can dance and sing in the relief of having nothing that will tempt a thief. Though it be hateful, poverty is good, a great incentive to a livelihood, and a great help to our capacity for wisdom, if accepted patiently. Poverty is, though wanting in estate, a kind of wealth that none can calumniate. Poverty often, when the heart is lowly, brings one to God and teaches what is holy, gives knowledge of oneself, and even lends a glass by which to see one's truest friends. And since it's no offense, let me be plain. Do not rebuke my poverty again. So she's saying, one of the things that's great about being poor is you don't own anything that would tempt somebody to steal from you. It helps you grow in wisdom. It is a kind of wealth that none can disparage or take away from you. It teaches you about what is holy, and a glass by which to see one's truest friends, right? Like that phrase of knowing, who your true friends are because they stick with you, when you're down. And she says, don't you dare talk bad about that again. I'm going to be plain. I'm going to be 100% honest here. Let me be real. Don't do it again. Lastly, you taxed me, sir, with being old. Yet even if you never had been told, by ancient books, you gentlemen engage yourselves in honor to respect old age. To call an old man father shows good breeding, and this could be supported from my reading. So she's saying, you can call me old like it's a bad thing, but, part of your upbringing was to, treat older people with respect and honor. You say I'm old and fouler than a fen. You need not fear to be a cuckold then. Filth and old age, I'm sure you will agree, are powerful wardens over chastity. Nevertheless, well knowing your delights, I shall fulfill your worldly appetites. So she's saying, if you think I'm old and ugly, you don't have to worry about being a cuckold. That means you don't have to worry about some other man stealing me away, right? A powerful warden over chastity. The way you raped that young girl that got you into this mess? That's not going to happen to me if I'm walking down the street. And so she says, I'm going to fulfill your worldly appetites. You have two choices. Which one will you try? to have me old and ugly till I die, but still a loyal, true, and humble wife, that never will displease you all her life? Or would you rather I were young and pretty, and chance your arm what happens in a city, where friends will visit you because of me? Yes, and in other places too, maybe. Which would you have? The choice is all your own. So the woman asks an interesting question at the end of this section of the passage. And she's basically saying, you get two choices. Do you want the old and ugly me? Or do you want the young and pretty me, knowing, what could happen? So go ahead and put your answer to this question. What do you predict the knight's answer will be? Why do you think that? So is he going to choose to keep her old and ugly, or is he going to want her to be the young and pretty wife? Which one is he picking and why? Go ahead and pause it and don't press play until you've put your prediction. The knight thought long, and with a piteous groan, at last he said, with all the care in life, my lady and my love, my dearest wife, I leave the matter to your wise decision. You make the choice yourself for the provision of what may be agreeable and rich, in honor to us both, I don't care which. Whatever pleases you suffices me. And have I won the mastery, said she, since I'm to choose and rule as I think fit? Certainly, wife, he answered her, that's it. So he's saying, you pick. I don't care if you decide to stay old and ugly, or if you choose to be young and pretty. It's up to you. And she's saying, so I'm in charge? And he says, yep. Kiss me, she cried, no quarrels, on my oath, and word of honor, you shall find me both. That is, both fair and faithful as a wife. May I go howling mad and take my life, unless I prove to be as good and true as ever wife was since the world was new. And if tomorrow, when the sun's above, I seem less fair than any lady love, than any queen or empress east or west, do with my life and death as you think best. So she's saying, I promise to be as fair and faithful as any human being who has ever lived. And if I don't live up to that expectation, you can do with my life what you want, what you think is best. Cast up the curtain, husband, look at me. And when indeed the knight had looked to see, lo, she was young and lovely, rich in charms. In ecstasy he caught her in his arms. His heart went bathing in a bath of blisses, and melted in 100,000 kisses. And she responded in the fullest measure, with all that could delight or give him pleasure. So they lived ever after to the end, in perfect bliss, and may Christ Jesus send us husbands meek and young and fresh in bed, and grace to overbid them when we wed. And Jesu, hear my prayer, cut short the lives of those who won't be governed by their wives. And all old angry niggards of their pence, God send them soon a very pestilence. So, when he lifted up the curtain, she was young and beautiful, and they made passionate love together, and they lived happily ever after. And the wife of Bath was saying, Bring us husbands who are young and fresh and meek, and give us the grace to have some authority over them when we get married. Cut short the lives of those who won't be governed by their wives. Give us that equality. And take away all the money and send them a disease. Okay, so she's saying anybody who refuses to be governed by their wife, then may every terrible thing possible happen to them. So go ahead and answer these last reflection questions. Did the story end as you predicted, either in your mind or in the pre-reading assignment if I had you do one? Did you enjoy the text? Why or why not? That's it.